Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III, and today I'm sitting down with my good friend David Olds. How you doing, man?
My man, doing awesome. Just got to see you this past weekend down in San Antonio. So happy to be on here. Finally made the cut that I wiggled my way into your podcast.
I know I don't understand how it took us this long to finally make this happen, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you, man. You're one of the you're a unicorn guest. Like you do so much, landlord. You're known for your ability to dispo deals. I think you've probably helped. You're probably one of the top 5 guys that's helped more people learn how to truly dispo deals. And then we've got REI Closings as well, which I want to talk about. So for the people that have not heard of you or seen one of your interviews before, just give a brief rundown of what it is and where you're from, what you're doing right now in real estate investing.
Yeah. So right now, our focus is almost 100% on our transactions company, REI Closings. We were very intentional when we started the company 3 years ago to go out to be able to go out and serve clients in all 50 states and do all transaction types. So, it wasn't really like this part-time thing that we were doing. So we were very intentional. And one of the reasons I think we've been so successful is that I've been an investor for 21 years, which is a ridiculous thing to even say, right? 21 years. But yeah, man, I mean, my wife and I started in 2002. We bought our first house. It was a foreclosure from Wells Fargo. Had no idea what that even meant. I remember coming out of the closing, talking to my agent, and I was like, why wasn't the seller there? And why does it say Wells Fargo? And she's like, well, it was a foreclosure, dummy. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we started out like everybody else. We bought a house. Like I guess a lot of people. We lived in it for 2 years. We fixed it up. We sold it. We made some money. We did it again. And somewhere along the way, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he says, go get involved in a local real estate group or meetup. And I was living in Central Florida at the time, just a little bit north of Orlando, and there was a really big REIA there called CFRI, Central Florida Real Estate Investors. And man, it was really funny. I drove down there the very first time, and people can never believe this. Like, also, when I tell people I'm incredibly introverted, they laugh and they think I'm crazy, but it's true. So I go down, I drive down. It's like 45 minutes to go to this REIA, and this was back in the heyday of REIAs. I don't know if you were going back then when there'd be like 400 people, and dude, I drove into the parking lot. I'm like, oh my god! And there were all these cars that were wrapped with like, we buy houses, hard money, soft money, private money, IRA, whatever, all the stuff, right? And I'm driving through looking for a parking spot, and I'm driving through, and I'm getting more and more fucking nervous the longer that I sit there. Drove right the fuck out the other side, went home, and my wife's like, "What happened?" I'm like, couldn't find it. And I can count on one hand the times I've told my wife not the truth, and that was one of them. And 2 months later, I went back, and I was just so pissed the whole time that I didn't go. I didn't go in because I decided I was going to go. So, the next time I drove down there, I was like white fucking knuckled the whole way. Like, I'm doing this. I'm self-talking myself. I'm doing all the shit. And, I went in and that was the beginning of a long journey. I started going to all the classes and boot camps and weekend events and all that stuff, just absorbing like a sponge as much as I could. And, the hard thing for me was I had a full-time job. My wife had a full-time job, and we were trying to start this thing on the side. And, it took a lot of work. So, I understand new people, especially like this event that we were just at, right? I remember what it was like to be the new guy and nervous about coming up and talking to somebody like you, right? I very distinctly, I was still nervous first time we met in Milwaukee talking to you, but so I remember that, and I think I'm empathetic to that, and that's why I do try to talk to people, just as much as I can until I'm absolutely worn out. But
well, you travel all over the place, and you definitely found a way to get over that being an introvert. But it's funny
I don't know if you ever get over it, but
right? I'm an introvert too. And I think you probably have noticed that we've been to enough events now where it's like I kind of force myself to do the hallway talks and stuff. And then it's kind of like all of a sudden I disappear. And it was funny. There was a gentleman in San Antonio this past weekend. I could tell he was extremely nervous to come up, like so much so he lost his breath when he came up to talk to me.
Yeah, dude, you're a big
But then,
deal.
but then as he finally calmed down, he's like talking about they're doing $1.2 million a quarter in assignment fees. And like I put my hand on his shoulder, I'm like, bro, you should never be nervous to come up and talk to me. Like, you're killing it.
Yeah,
you're doing amazing.
You're crushing it.
Right.
You're the guy.
I want to ask you, like, for people that struggle with this, because there is so much value in going to these events and these meetups and the REIAs. I think you and I both would look back and say a lot is what has changed our businesses and our career paths has been attending these types of events. How do you find a way to get over that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with this.
Getting over it, like going to the events and get trying to get value.
Being an introvert. Not driving through the parking lot and lying to the wife. Yeah. How did they get over that?
Dude, that's a true story. So when it first started, it was a little bit at a time. So that time I did go in, right? I went in, I paid my $20 to go in or whatever it was. And, I walked in and this was a big REIA. So kind of like, almost like what we were at. There was like a hallway and people had booths and tables. And I'm like, I don't know. I see other people picking up a bag, grabbing off tchotchkes off the table, pens. And I'm like, I'm just going to do that. So I just kind of did what everybody else did, but like, head down, kind of kept to myself. I went into the room and I remember I sat in the very back left-hand corner. And here's really the story that kind of changed it for me. So that first REIA, I'm sitting in the very back left-hand corner, and CFRI, they do this thing called Deal of the Month, or at least they did back then. So Deal of the Month is they pre-select 3 or 4 people. They have them come up on stage. And this is old days where it's like transparencies. They would put the transparency down and shoot it up on the wall. Right. So the first guy's this old guy. He comes up and he's like, hey, my name is Bob. And I'm sitting in the back corner with my notebook. Bob, right? I'm like taking notes, right? Bob. Okay. Hey, my name is Bob. And I, probably the guy was like 80 years old Florida guy, literally overalls and a t-shirt, like everything you'd think a stereotypical old guy in Florida would be. So anyways, he's talking about how he was going to North Carolina to visit his kinfolk. Like, I remember that. And he stopped somewhere along the way in South Carolina and saw this house was for sale, like a for sale by owner sign. So he's like, I went and talked to him, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but he was like, I offered him, $60,000 and he wanted $100,000. And I told him I couldn't pay that. So I gave him my card, and he called me about a week later, and I was on my way home. So I stopped and bought the house and hired a contractor. And then I came back to Florida and I just sold it for like $140,000. And I'm like, this fucking guy has marbles in his mouth, can't talk. He's fucking 80.
Right.
And if this guy can do it, like, I graduated college. I've like run big stores and big companies. Like, I can do this, right? Like, if he can do it, I can do it. So then I'm still sitting there, I'm taking my notes. And now this girl gets up, this like beautiful 23-year-old Russian girl. I can't remember her name now, but anyways, this girl's up there, barely speaks English, and I'm paying very close attention to her, right? Like, she has all of my attention, and she's flipping mobile homes all over Orlando for like $5,000 and a pop. And this is like the mid 2000s. So, and I'm like, again, this girl doesn't even speak fucking English, and she's making money. I don't remember what the other 2 people said. I really don't. But those 2 people like are imprinted on my brain, because, I will sit back a lot of times and think, I can't do this or whatever. But I remember, like, if those 2 people can do this, I am smart enough to figure this out. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I'm not that fucking smart. Like, I'm not. What I am is focused and too stupid to quit. And I think that's one of the things that's so important is, deciding what you want to do, and then, staying focused, right? You've been in this business a long time. I have too. Most of the people that I see that fail, they're bouncing around from strategy to strategy. It's lease options, storage units, wholesaling. It's every week it's something different, some new shiny object. And if you can just pick something and be focused on it, my gosh, like, Kent Clothier says it's a world of mediocrity out there. It's pretty easy to beat the masses. Just pick up the phone and do the thing you're supposed to do. You don't have to be great, right? Just pick up the phone.
Yep. So got the little hedgehog back here.
Yeah, man.
It's from Mr. Eric Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
He gave that to me as a gift because I always talk about the hedgehog concept. And I tell people I almost bankrupted myself being the guy that hopped around from strategy to strategy. Yeah. I wanted to be the world's greatest wholesaler, while being the world's greatest house flipper, while being the world's greatest landlord, while also doing the Airbnbs. And hey, let's sell or finance some too. I mean, I tried to kill myself.
Yeah.
And I almost did. And now I always preach, hey, hedgehog concept from the book Good to Great from Jim Collins. Yep. Pick what you're going to do. So right now, what you've decided you want to do is easy REI closing, transaction coordination in all 50 states, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, so for a while, I was trying to do three things. Even still, I was doing a little bit of coaching, very, very small scale, the wholesale operation, and then easy REI closings when we first started it. And I had a mentor. He's like, dude, you got to shut the coaching down. I get it. It feels good, right, to be coaching, and it is pretty good money, but you need to focus on, training up your wholesale team and your team for transactions and easy. And that was good. That took a lot of pressure off me. But then as Easy started growing, like we did over $100 million in transactions in the last 18 months. It's a lot. Yeah. And, I just realized that although, they seem like they would be two businesses on a parallel path, they're not. Running a wholesale business is very salesy, it's boiler room, acquisitions, dispositions, rah, rah, rah. And transactions is not. It's very, when I go out into where my salespeople used to be and it's all filled with TCs now, I'm like, why is it so quiet? Because they're different personalities out there. Their heads are down. They're typing. They're looking at title commitments. They're making calls, but it doesn't have that same energy. And it was really difficult to switch back and forth all the time. Along with that, the travel, right? The travel and not being in the office, and it just became unsustainable. And we had to pick one. And obviously, you pick the one that's growing and has the the brightest future.
So I have a question about you doing deals in all 50 states because I actively on my, social media talk about, hey, we do deals in all 50 states.
Yeah.
It's funny because the number one question I get is about the different laws and the different rules and doing deals in all the different states. I don't really get questions about what I think people should ask questions about, which is how do you comp a deal in New Jersey in comparison to comping a deal in Missouri? Where I'm like, hey, there are like really big differences on how to comp these types of deals.
Yeah. 100%.
So from a transaction, from a TC company, how are you keeping up with all of these changes that are going on constantly? I mean, we just saw it a couple of months ago. I think it was 6 or 7 months ago. Nebraska said, hey, in order to wholesale a deal, you have to have a realtor involved. You cannot market a property without having a realtor license involved in that. And it's constantly changing. South Carolina, we've seen deals. Illinois, North Carolina, Oklahoma. Is that a problem for you guys?
Well, we keep very close track of it. For instance, 2 weeks ago, Tennessee came out and said they didn't say you couldn't record a notice of contract, but if you were caught, if it was deemed to be fraudulent, the fine was $10,000 per occurrence. So here's the thing with all these laws. Yes, with 15, 16 coordinators, whatever we got, we do keep kind of a little database on our side of new changes so that we can let our clients know. Most of these laws, honestly, are written pretty loosey-goosey where you can kind of work around them, right? You have to have a realtor to sell a property. Well, technically, we're not selling a property, we're selling a contract. Like there's enough gray area in there that people can still operate. This one in Tennessee was very well written. I've looked at it. I've had 2 attorneys look at it, and I'm not sure I want to file memos for people, for our clients. We'll do them in most states, but but this is happening. So we talked about this a little bit this weekend. Here's what I think about wholesaling. First off, I love it. It's given me a life that I probably don't deserve. It's the greatest equalizer. People know, any race, creed, color, socioeconomic, anything, you can get started and make a lot of money. But like they are chopping away at it from every angle. 2 things I don't think can ever go away is an assignment of contract. That's baked into common law going back 1,000 years. So I don't think you can ever do away with assigning a contract because it's prevalent in every industry, right? I can contract a 18-wheeler, a 12-pack Pepsi and assign that contract, right? Contracts are just assignable. The other thing that I don't think they can do is, and that law you just mentioned, is I don't think they can keep you from selling your own property without a realtor if you own it. So I think those are two. I think those are two pretty much landmarks that they're not going to be able to chop away at. However, I do think they are like chopping every corner of that paper off that they possibly can. And the future that I predict is going to be a couple of things. One, they're going to force everybody to have a license, which is the wrong solution to the right problem, right?
Right.
Certainly, the thing about wholesaling is very low barrier of entry. It's fantastic. I tell people, if this is broke, I had half of broke. Like I didn't even have enough money to be considered broke when I started, like fucking poor, like broke poor. So it was a great way for me to get started in real estate, and build a great life. So that's the best part of wholesaling. The worst part of wholesaling is that it also has a very low barrier of entry, and a lot of shitheads can get in. And, if you are unscrupulous and you're just not a good person, it's a very easy place that's incredibly unregulated to screw people over. So unfortunately, what makes us good is what makes us bad.
But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a low barrier of entry to becoming a licensed realtor as well.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think that's the answer, right? I think that's the only, again, these people that are regulating it don't really understand what we're doing. First off, no, I think Jerry Norton and Wensley probably have the best idea of coming up with some kind of association or alliance or something like that, where we can say, hey, these people are certified, and maybe we're carrying a bond or something like that. Licensing is the wrong answer to the right problem. The problem is people are out there doing foolish stuff. And I've always said, there's going to be a day, RJ, where somebody fucks over a U.S. senator's niece, and that's the end. It's done. Because here's the thing about us, like we are, as investors, like nobody cares about us. We're not a constituency, right? Republicans will hate us. They will come together and crush us under their boot heel like there's no tomorrow, and it will be fast. So, we do need to figure out a way to self-regulate ourselves. And it's not you and it's not me, but there are people out there doing dopey stuff. We hear about it all the time. It's crazy. So,
but David, you say it's not us, but at times it can be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can be misconstrued with these types of transactions. I mean, and the facts are, when you start building these teams, right? You can do all the training in the world, but you can't control everything that your acquisitions guy says. You can't control everything that your dispo guy says.
Yeah.
And we talk about this new law in Tennessee where, hey, they're basically cracking down and saying you can't file a memo.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Yeah. Well, because people are out there teaching that you should put a memo on every contract that you get.
Yeah.
And now we're running into situations where, hey, sellers facing foreclosure, we come along, we contract it, we dispo it, title comes back and says there's a memo on file, and the wholesaler says, I won't release it unless you give me 10 grand.
Yeah.
And essentially say, I don't care if I'm fucking the homeowner. Like, these are the decisions that are being made. I mean, I'm curious, how often are you guys having to deal with title issues like that where in reality, you wish there was some kind of regulation on wholesaling where it's like, I wish that, this guy's a bad guy. We got to get him the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, dude, we clear 30% of the field away just from that. 100%. Yeah, no, all the time, man. And our girls are the ones who have to track this person down and see if we can clear it and what's it going to cost. Dude, this happened to me early on. I bought a house here in Chattanooga. It was maybe the third house I was going to rehab. Anyways, closed on it, got title insurance, and it was a really weird situation. I closed on it almost immediately. The seller had it for sale at one point. So I get a call from this agent. She's like, hey, I have two guys who want to buy this house. We'll give you $55,000 for it. I think I paid $25,000 for it. So this was a great payday. I'm like, send over the paperwork. We're done. I'm not remodeling this thing. I'll go clean it out. We're done. And the title search comes back and there was a cloud on the title, a memo. I'm like, okay, well, who is it? I'm like, oh, I know this guy. So I call him up. We'll just call him Bob. I'm like, hey, Bob, it's David. Saw that you noticed a contract on this from like a year ago, some ridiculous fucking thing. I'm like, yeah, I just need you to sign a release. You want me to bring it over? No, I'm not signing it. Like, man, you got to sign it because your contract's expired. I'm not doing it. I'll do it for half of your deal. I'm like, I'm like, hey, motherfucker, I don't know if you think I'm new, but we're not
Right.
fucking doing this. Like you need to get this thing done. Nope, I'm not doing it. Okay, call my attorney. I'm like, figure it the fuck out. Like, we even offered him a couple grand just to,
Right.
motherfucker would not do it. We had to do a suit for quiet title. And, so I'm one of the few people that's been through one. And the judge had no tolerance for this equitable interest and all that bullshit that people talk about. He had to release it, pay my attorney costs and his attorney costs. But I lost my damn buyer for $55,000 for the easy 30 and had to remodel it and resell it. So yeah, those are the types of people that are out there just fucking stuff up.
I'll tell you this. As a wholesaler, the worst words that you could ever see in an email from a title company is quiet title. Is basically like, oh no, because it guaranteed whatever buyer you had, you just lost, right? And it's just such a long and costly process. And especially as a wholesaler, it's almost like, well, I don't really want to pay for that because who knows that the seller's going to go away at the end of this, right?
Right.
So that's a terrible thing. I've got a question for you because this was a hot debate on Pardon the Disruption.
Love it.
Attorney states.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the difference between an attorney state and title states? And do you like working with attorneys?
Fuck no. First off, the only reason there's an attorney state is because they're better lobbyists than anybody else. Right. That's the only reason. That is it, right? Like, we do a lot of stuff in Connecticut, New York, a lot of deals. And dude, it's a struggle because you've got, and especially if it's like a novation, right? So you've got your seller, you've got the wholesaler, you have the listing agent, the buying agent, the end buyer, the mortgage broker, and 2 attorneys and their paralegals. We did one that had, the email chain was over 200. And it was just bullshit back and forth. Like, they're just getting paid by the fucking email, and it goes nowhere.
Yep.
Can we do it? Yes. I have a couple of TCs that really specialize in those because they have the most fucking patience of anybody. But no, it's a big pain in the ass. I don't love them, but we close in all 50 states, so we'll do it. But we'll tell people, typically I say guys, but the guys and gals who are in those states, they live there, right?
Right.
I got a guy, Michael, who lives in somewhere outside of New York, and that's his area. So that's why he's doing deals. But when people call us and they're like from Texas, yeah, I'm thinking about going to Connecticut. I'm like, like, you can, but make sure you got 120 days on your contract or 160 days. Like, you gotta stretch this thing out.
So basically, you agree with my opinion that in attorney states, the attorneys really don't have the seller and buyer's best interests at heart. They're basically deal killers, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the only reason that you've got attorney states is because the bar went and lobbied and said, hey, we want our attorneys involved in every transaction to keep the fraud down. And bro, I've talked to so many attorneys in my life in 20 years of doing this. Most of them are fucking idiots, right? They're good at their one little thing, but you get these like family lawyers that want to get involved in the middle of a real estate transaction and have no idea what real estate law is. And we're trying to coach them up to say, hey, here's what you need to do. Right. Like
I mean, I've literally had attorneys ask me before, so you're just going to lock this contract up at 200,000, do nothing and try to make $25,000. And I'm like, I'm not trying to make $25,000. This
is what we're going to do.
$25,000. Like, and is it your first deal? Like, yes, this is exactly what's happening. But so here's my question. In one breath, we want to protect ourselves as wholesalers, and we feel like they're coming after us. Why isn't anybody going after the deal killers in the attorney states and saying, hey, there should be something across the board that says this is how real estate transactions are handled? On the same note, why aren't states like Iowa and Oklahoma that are abstract states, why aren't we catching them up to 2023 where it's not, like we're still in the 1800s? Why isn't this something that we're talking about where we're saying, hey, across the board, let's just uniform, this is how real estate transactions are handled? Because as a TC company in all 50 states, you talk about you're always trying to deal with issues to clear title. We have the technology nowadays where this should be so much easier for us. Do you not agree?
I do agree. And I had a meeting in I'm trying to think of where we just were. San Antonio, we had a big title company, a big tech title company fly down to see us in San Antonio. We met with them on last Wednesday. And, you know, I've met with them a few times, and they talk about putting real estate on the blockchain. And the reality is, would it be good? Probably. I think there's still some issues with, you know, partitions of title, and there'd be some things to figure out. But the reason it's not going to happen is because not only are there 50 states, bro, but there's 3,000 counties, and every one of them is their own little fiefdom, and they are just never going to all come on board. We will get healthcare on a blockchain far quicker than we will get real estate. So these people that are like, oh, real estate, it's going to happen in the next 5 years. No fucking chance. It's just not going to happen, because you have to imagine all of these 3,000, they've all got their own little county recorder or, you know, property appraiser or whoever it is, and they're just never going to give up that control. But when you look back at why, you know, why are these laws the way they are, is because somebody has a knee-jerk reaction to one person or one, you know, company that's doing the wrong thing, and then they try to legislate to fix that one problem, and it just opens up a whole nother can of worms. Or they do such a shitty job writing the legislation that it doesn't solve the problem.
So on this same note, what are your thoughts about virtual wholesalers? Let's just say not all 50 states. Let's say, hey, I'm going to do, you know, 4, 5, 6 different states. What are your thoughts about the ones that say, hey, I want to use, I lost your camera there, David.
Yeah, I'm pulling it back in.
All
I
right.
don't know what happened. I can hear you though.
So 4, 5, 6 different states, and they say they want to use one of these nationwide title companies. What are your thoughts about those nationwide title companies?
So I switched my camera here for some reason. I will tell you, here's an interesting story. When we started REI Closings, my fantasy was that we would have one title company to deal with, right? Because it'd be great for our team. Very easy for them to have somebody to, you know, to work with, so that it was just simple. And the reality was, we tried a couple of them and we broke them. Like, we would send them 30 contracts in a week, and just like it just completely died. So there was just absolutely none of them that could keep up. So now we're at the point where we use, I think the last count was 383 different title companies across all 50 states. So why that many? One, we never want to overload anybody, right? We never want to give somebody more contracts than they can handle. And the reality, they'll all say like, send me as much as you want. I'm like, sorry, dude, we played this game before. We're not going to do that. And then you know, none of them are proficient in all 50 states. So we're on the verge of opening, not a nationwide title company, but we're going to open in the top 7 states. In fact, I've got to go at noon today to get fingerprinted for Florida. So, but it's a lot. Again, 3,000 counties. So you have to imagine, as a nationwide title company, or even somebody working in multiple markets, that you know, you have to know in every county everything that's going on. So if there's, you know, Birmingham, right? There's this weird thing about getting a water sewage release, right? I know there's some funny stuff in Western PA. So like, every county's got their own little weird thing. And it just, you know, to be able to operate on a nationwide scale, you have to understand all that. None of this is like written down on any website, any place, right? And it's all held like in these, you know, tight little, you know, fiefdoms or whatever. So, well, nationwide title companies, it's a struggle.
Florida is a good example. Certain places in Florida, it's just completely normal. And then other places, it's a big thing about the municipal lien releases. They need to get. And so it's like, there's been times where as a wholesaler, it's like we go do our first 4 or 5 deals in Florida, and then the 5th or 6th deal, suddenly it's, we can't close on time. Why not? Because we need a municipal lien release, and it's going to take 3 weeks. You know, and it's like, what are you talking about? There is no lien, right? We have to send it down, and they have to send back a piece of paper saying there is no lien. That's what we're going to wait on. And it's like just little idiosyncrasies across the board. So talk to me about the power of having a company like REI Closings that helps people. Like, because I think sometimes people underestimate what a transaction coordination company does. So
100%.
talk about what it is that you guys do, because we talked about a lot of these issues, but I want to know specifically what you guys do.
Yeah. So what we will be able to do, like, if you came in and again, like we were talking about going to New York, hey, these are the markets that I'm working in, and we onboard every client. We do, hey, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? What is it that you want to do? And if you come to us and say, hey, I really want to start marketing in this area, then we can pull up that state and those counties and say, okay, cool. Here are some of the things that you need to know. The municipal lien search, dude, I did this for 20 years, and that was new to me when we started this company and really got into some of these counties and started digging in. So yeah, so what we can do, ultimately, here's what we do for our clients. Let's say you send me in a contract, right? Super easy, drag and drop, done, right? You're going to send me 123 Main Street, Mrs. Smith. So I'm going to call Mrs. Smith. Hey, Mrs. Smith, this is David. I'm working with RJ on your deal over at 123 Main Street. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to be your point of contact from here all the way till closing, because I want you out, right? Go get your next deal. Go sell your deal. Mrs. Smith, I need to collect some information from the title company so that we can get you paid just as quickly as possible. And then we're going to start to collect that information. After $100 million in transactions, 2,500 files, like, we know if it's West Virginia, a novation, and probate, like, we know the mix of things that the title company is going to need. So our goal is always this. I want to compress time. I want to go from the moment you contract with Mrs. Smith to closing just as quickly as possible. And the way that we do that is collecting all the documents up front. So a transactions company, no matter who it is going to be very front end heavy, meaning you upload this contract. I have no idea if it's going to close. I have to assume you're going to assign it tomorrow, right? Because I need to be ready to go to get you to closing. The bad side of this business is 40% of these contracts will never close.
Right.
That's just the reality. So, for us, I'm going to collect all of that information up front, every single thing. So let's say dead person, right? We know that we're going to do our best to avoid probate. So how do we do that, right? Well, we're going to get a death certificate. We're going to get an obituary. We're going to need all of the heirs to sign. We're going to have to be in contact with them. We're going to have to get 2 disinterested parties to sign an affidavit of heirship at closing. And usually, if there's nothing else squirrely, we can get clear title with that. Now that saves you from doing a 4 to 6 month probate. So that's what we will do on the front side, right? We're collecting all that information. So once you upload your buying contract or your buyer's contract, same thing, right? Now I'm going to call Bob. Hey, Bob, this is David. I'm working with RJ, 123 Main Street. Hey, man, looks like you're closing this in your LLC. Awesome. I need your corporate docs, articles of incorporation, who can sign, and you're using RCN Capital, Tim Herridge. Fantastic. Give me your agent's info so I can get all of that over the title company so we can get this, your deed of trust or your mortgage done. So our goal is, as a transactions company, is to completely remove the client from this part of the business. Because one, nobody got into this business to learn how to do monument of title or solve curative issues, right? You didn't, right? We all got in because we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or we saw some video with Max Maxwell, flying his jet, making $1 million. We're all here because people are watching you close deals live on the phone, and they're like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. I want to do that. I want to make $40,000. I want to be on stage and, doing all of these things, and that's awesome because that's the cool part of the business. That's the Rolex and Lambos. Nobody wants to have the broccoli and, cauliflower of joint transactions. And, they will struggle through it, right? Like I did for a long time until I was smart enough to hire an experienced TC. But what will happen is it's not fun, right? And it's not our personality type. Everybody who's a wholesaler, 99% of us, we're kind of hustlers, we're entrepreneurs. We've got that. Let's jump out of the plane and build a parachute on the way down. We'll figure it out. And being a TC is we talked about at the beginning, a different personality type, right? They like problem solving and being in Excel and, emailing and me, like my desk is a shithole because I don't like doing paperwork. My accountant hates me. My bookkeeper hates me. My lawyer's up my ass for shit all the time. Like I want to go do the fun stuff. I want to be online and talk to you. I'm a talky person. So that's why it's a struggle. And then, I did work through a lot of deals, but in the very beginning, to kind of circle back to attorneys, we're not an attorney state here. We're a title company state, but there was the only investor friendly title company when I first came to Chattanooga in 2009 was First Title, and there was this attorney named Jeremy. So I would take these contracts in RJ, and sometimes it'd be okay, but like at least a third of the time I'd be like, oh man, got a dead person. You're going to have this go through probate. I'd be like, oh shit, man. Like literally crumpling up a $10, $12, $15,000
Right.
assignment fee back then, throwing it away. And this was happening over and over and over again. And finally, one time I was like at wit's end. I didn't even know. I'm like, dude, come on, man. There's nothing we can do here. Like I told the seller I'd help him and it's going to be a good assignment fee. Like, what would you do? And this is another one of those things that changed my life. He's like, man, I guess if you could get me the death certificate and the obituary and the heirs, and we can find 2 people to sign affidavit, I can close this. Dude, I fucking stood there like I lost my fucking breath because I'm thinking of all the shit that I threw away, the tens of thousands of dollars. I'm like, dude, you mean like we could have closed some of these deals? Well, yeah. I'm like, motherfucker. Right. So that is something that we take to heart in our business. One, we take the responsibility that you would trust us to close your deals very, very seriously, right? Because I've been on the other side of that table. I understand what it's like, and we are going to do everything we can to fight to get these things closed. Obviously, I'm not doing anything illegal for anybody. I'm not losing any of my stuff, but we will, if it's a closable deal, we will get it closed. If it's not, we will tell you, okay, RJ, this is probably going to need a super quiet title. Your seller's going to have to open it because, they're the people that have standing to be in court. So here's what I would do. I would take your seller and I would go ahead and put them on a contract through the end of the year. I would take my buyer and go ahead and lock him up and put him in through the, till the end of the year as well, so that you've got time to go ahead and do this. Or plan B, go to your seller and say, hey man, you've got a bad title. It's like a salvage title on a car. I know you wanted 40, but I'll give you 18. And then go to your buyer and say, hey man, I'm going to give you this on a deal if you're interested in doing the quiet title yourself, right?
Right.
So we'll always try to give you options of what you can do if we can't work it through the process today.
And I would say it's very rare that it's just that bad. There's usually
it's rare.
It's mainly the timing in which it's going to take to resolve the title and making sure all parties involved are willing to participate. Right? Those are the ones.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. If somebody had asked me that the other day, and I'm like, well, yeah, if everybody's on board, like we'll get it over the line. But if somebody won't answer the phone and they're not answering the door, whatever, like there's only so much that we can do. My VP of Ops, Heather, just did this deal the other day. You met her, and it was like the guy was getting ready to go to jail. He literally had her on speakerphone while he was in court because he needed to pay some money, and she had to testify on speakerphone that, yeah, this is a deal. We're handling the deal. It's going to get closed. And some of them get crazy, but there's usually a way to get through it.
Funny you bring that up. We had a similar deal. One of our students in Florida brought us a deal. It was a foreclosure, inherited, foreclosure. One of the brothers was in prison. Needed him to get he needed to sign off on some documents, right? The one chance we had to go to the prison with the notary to get the document signed, there was a fight in the prison and they shut it down. And the deal got foreclosed on. And it's like, I went to I talked to my student about it, and it's like, dude, there's nothing we could have done there. Like, I mean, we cannot predict a prison yard fight. Like, what?
Yeah.
But I can now say we lost the deal to a prison yard fight. I mean,
dude. We've done some weird ones. Prisons, like a lot of times the prisons have a notary on staff that if you can get a hold of the right person. So prisons are a lot easier than missing heirs, because if you're in jail, you're in the system. I can track you down really fast. Just missing people, like, my cousin's just gone, nobody knows where they're at. Those are a little more challenging. Some of the weird ones are when a buyer or seller's out of the country and you have to get them to a U.S. embassy or a consulate to get them to sign the documents. That's been interesting. A couple of times, one of them, I remember they were in Jordan and we needed a power of attorney for a wife so that the husband could sign. So we sent her a POA. And the embassy's like, no, sign this POA. And it was just a real loosey-goosey kind of generic thing. And one thing about a POA in real estate, the reason that that title companies and title insurance companies are so finicky is because there's so much fraud, right? So they want, for instance, like a POA to be very specific. Like
Right.
I, David Olds, I'm giving RJ Bates III permission to sign, my documents pertaining to this on this address at this date. Like it's incredibly specific. They don't like these broad powers of attorney because now the underwriters, First American, Old Republic, Fidelity, they're like, well, what's going on here? That's this guy can't sign and this other guy has this weird power. Like that makes them very nervous because, one thing that people don't understand about title insurance is if they miss something, like that title company missed that notice of contract for me, like they're on the hook. Like they're on the hook for real money, so anyways, but yeah, so there's lots of weird things that we've had to do to get deals closed.
If I am working with Easy,
yeah,
and one of my 40% of the deals that falls out,
yeah,
how does that work with you guys? Is that just like a cost of business on my side, or is that a cost of business on y'all's side?
So here's how we work. So we when we started the business, we had a little bit different business model, and it all goes back to this. For us, because we're so front end heavy, to start on a file and then get paid at closing, if 40% of the time we're not getting closed, we have to do one of two things. I have to jack up the price so high that I can cover all of that work because these are real people doing real work, right?
Right.
Same thing when you submit your file to a title company and say, yeah, go ahead and start the search and then don't close, right? That's wrong because they're paying for that. So it can be anywhere from $200 to $500. So the option is I jack the price up, to $1,000 a file, which there are people that charge $1,200 a file. So there's plenty. Or I have to charge you a cancellation fee. And man, there's nothing worse than losing a deal you thought was going to be 40 grand and getting zapped for a $200 cancellation fee. That's right. So the way that we came up with offsetting that was we're on a subscription model. So we have 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, right? So based on the number of deals that you're doing. So somebody like you who may be doing 20 plus deals a month, you would pay an amount that's for 20 deals. And then we've also got the guys doing 2 and 3 deals and they pay a lower amount. So with the subscription, we will let, if you have a deal die, it dies, right? No bubbles, no troubles. Like we're going to monitor that. Like, if we go 3 months, we'd be like, RJ, hey man, you're canceling at 60%. Every one of our clients are 35. What's going on? What can we help you with? Do you need help with sales training? I know Steve Trang. Maybe I can help, we'll do those types of things. But being on a subscription model does a couple of things. One, if you do 5 deals with us, it averages out to $325, which is half the price of anybody else. It gives me predictability in my business with revenue that I can add new CRMs and add new people and do those things. And it allows me to not have to do those cancellation fees. So people really have responded well to it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, talk to the guy that's doing 2 to 3 deals a month. The value that having you guys on their site, because probably if you're doing 2 to 3, you're probably either just you or you and your spouse or you and your partner.
Yeah.
The time saved that having someone like you on your team, what that does for that person. Have you seen that person go from 2 to 3 to 10?
Yes. So that's exactly what it is. One thing that I talk about when I'm on stage a lot is there are only 24 hours in the day. Math and science tell us that, right? It's 24. That's it. Not a minute more, not a minute less. And you can only work so many hours. When I was new, I was a fucking idiot and thought I had to do every single thing myself, right? I'm working 18 hours a day. Like nobody can do it better than me. I'm the smartest guy, all that bullshit that we all tell ourselves, right? And that's great. It's cool. I had control of everything, right? But you do max out, man, by yourself at 3 to 5 deals a month. Like that's the number. I did 8 one time in December and it almost fucking killed me because you're doing the marketing, the acquisitions, the dispositions, and the transactions. Like that's a lot of flaming baseballs up in the air, right? So yes, 100%. One of the biggest things, people love a lot of different things about our service, but one of the things that we hear the most is after 30 or 45 days, people are like, holy shit, I had no idea how much of my life this was consuming, right? Like they just don't realize it because it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's every day a different email from the title company or the underwriter. And you have to stop what you're doing and go back to this file and go back to work on it. So yeah, 100% it helps people grow. We've seen so many companies go from 1 to 5 to 6 to 10, and that's what we want, right? We obviously we make more money, they make more money, everybody makes more money. We want to ascend them up as high as they can possibly go, or as high as they want to go.
Right.
And because everybody in this business, right? If you're doing, I remember when hadn't done my first deal, man, I wanted to do my first deal more than fucking anything in this world. I said, I will cartwheel down fucking Main Street naked and nobody wants to see all this, right? Like that's how bad I wanted that first deal. Once you get 1 and 2, what do you want to be doing a month? You want to be doing 3, 4, 5, right? The guy who's doing 5 wants to be doing 10. The guy who's 10 wants to be you. You know, the guy doing 20 wants to be fucking Eric Klein, right? Like we're all trying to get up to that next level. So that's what we're able to do. We're able to come in and give you back that 20 or 30% of your time where you're not just working on paperwork, because chances are you don't love it. I don't love it. And I own the company, man. Like I don't love sitting and doing it. But you know, what do you want to do? What do you want to be doing? Me and all the other wholesalers out there, we want to be making deals. We want to be doing the fun shit, the Rolex and Lambo stuff, right? I want to be talking to sellers. I want to be helping them. I want to be taking that deal to my buyers. I want to ink that fucking deal. I want to turn it off to somebody else and go do it again. Right. That's what we do for people.
Love it. Since you're doing so many deals,
yeah,
and you're pretty much seeing what's happening,
mm-hmm.
Where's your thumb on the pulse of what the market is? Where are we in September of 2023? Yeah. This is when we're recording. Yeah. What's happened right now?
I'm gonna tell you, man, the market's good. It befuddles me when I see all this stuff on Facebook. The people that are in the business, that are doing the business, are doing fine. Novations are way up. You know, guys like Eric Brewer and, Novations, they brought that to the marketplace, and our Novations clients are fucking crushing it right now. But here's how we measure, because we're always adding new clients. I can't go by file count. But average file per client, we're up almost like 0.6 files. So we're seeing more people doing more files. So I feel good about that. I feel like the industry is strong. I would say, as someone who's been through a couple of market cycles, right? This was not a crash that we just had 2 years ago. Like I went through 2007, 8, 9, dude. That was for real. Like we had houses losing 25% of their value overnight. And what we did was we just had this little correction. The market is strong. We're still short 4 to 5 million units nationwide. They can't build fast enough. We're in good shape. Yeah, our interest rate's up, sure. But dude, also in 2008, I bought a house and I got a 7% interest, and I thought I was the fucking man, right? So 7.7 is normal, right? And here's what I tell people: look, if you could do deals in 2021, which was arguably the hottest fucking market that's existed in 20 years, right? Like sellers know they're sitting on gold, buyers are, you mean to tell me when things slow the fuck down a little bit and sellers start to realize they're not sitting on gold, you can't get a fucking deal? The fuck is wrong? That doesn't even make sense. Like this is normal. No matter what happens in the market, right? Whether we're on fire or not, life is still happening to people, right? People are still getting divorced, job transfers, death, inheritance, bad tenants. Like life still happens, right? Not everybody is, doom and gloom or on top of the world, right? If I was to go to the top of my building here with a slingshot and shoot a pebble in a half-mile radius, I will hit somebody tonight that is losing sleep over a property.
Yep.
That's our job as wholesalers, is to be in there and help those people solve those problems.
I probably said it 100 times this past weekend in San Antonio, because people would ask me, what list? Hey, we're going to go after pre-foreclosures. We're going to go after tax defaults. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I would tell them, stop. It's never for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay. That's never the reason why they want to sell.
Yeah.
It's for all of the life reasons.
Yeah, man.
Why they want to sell.
Yeah.
That's just our low-hanging fruit that triggers us to think, hey, you're in pre-foreclosure. Probably something's going on in your life. That's why you can't pay your mortgage, which is why you need to sell.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Life is always going to happen. Are you seeing assignment fees up over last year, or?
We're trending up, and that's a little hard for us to see because we do so many novations.
Right.
In family, Sherrod came in and a couple of the other big CRM guys, and they did a report end of last year. Said the average assignment fee was $18,263 which is pretty solid. And that's pretty much everybody will say about the same thing. For us, our clients are hovering right around 30, 31. So yeah, it feels like assignment fees are up. And I think, one of the ways that we help with that is because you're just able to focus more on spending time with acquisitions and spending time on dispositions and not worrying about, all of the closing stuff. But yeah, assignment fees are up. I think they are.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, we're
Yeah.
going to wrap up here pretty soon, but you made a pretty big life decision this past weekend, and this whole episode, you've been talking like this, and so I keep saying it. What's the story behind the 11 of 10?
Oh, yeah. Well, whatever it is. So I was with Robert Wensley up in Dallas the week before, and he was talking about the 11 out of 10. And here's what he was saying. He was talking about when he interviews people, and when they come in, he says, "Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how hard are you willing to work? What are you looking to do?" And most of them will say like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. He's like, "Listen, like 9 out of 10, we're done. Like, we're done. I appreciate you coming by. 10 out of 10, if you're a business owner, maybe you're going to last 5 years. But, the only people that are really going to succeed and be legendary and the people who are going to absolutely crush it have to come in every day and be willing to go the extra mile." So that's the 11 on 10. So where I got this, and I'm not a tattoo guy by any fucking stretch. Like it took 12 minutes to do this and I was miserable the whole fucking time. But, I got it. So my watch sits right on top of it so that every day when I put on my watch, it just reminds me that, hey, today we have another opportunity. We're blessed to be able to go in and do this business. And, I've got a wife of, 2 boys and 2 fat dogs, and I need to make sure that I'm giving them 11 out of 10. And in fact, that was the last thing I said this morning as I left the house. My 2 English bulldogs were following me to the door, and I'm like, "Daddy's got to go to work and make you some cookie money." So
there you go.
11 out of 10, go the extra mile.
I love it, man. And honestly, I mean, I have to say it's one thing when someone goes and gets a tattoo and it's like, oh, I give 11 out of 10. But I've gotten to know you over the past couple of years, and I've gotten to see how much work you really put in for your company and for your family. And dude, you are by far one of the hardest workers in this industry, from just the fact that you're at every event. I swear to God, I don't even know how you do it. I think you have artificial intelligence clones of yourself, because you're literally at every single one. You know everyone. Is that something that one day you just sat down and you made a decision like, hey, if we're going to do this TC company, I've got to go out there and network with every single person? Was that a conscious decision that you made?
Yeah. So the way that I've always started all of my businesses, right? We bootstrapped. We started from nothing. We didn't have a lot of money. So, when I started EZ, even though we had a wholesaling company, like I wasn't sitting on $200,000 to start running a bunch of ads. So, I needed to go out to Ricardo's event and to, Mike and Charles and, wherever it was that I could be, and to different masterminds and talk about what we're doing and, be that person. But yeah, I mean, we had mentioned earlier, I talked to my wife about this time last year and said, hey, we've been running this for a year. It's going good, but we're ready to take it to the next level. And the way that I'm going to do that is just by being out there and, talking to people and explaining what it is that we do and getting on stage. And, for me, being on stage is it's a horrific experience. I don't enjoy it. I get up there sometimes and my chest constricts and I feel like I can't breathe. And, but again, now I have a big company. I have all these, 20 something employees, and, it's important that I go out there and, bring in new clients, because now I'm responsible for all of these people as well. And I truly believe that what we do really helps people. And, our core values are, we are here to help our clients grow their business, to do more deals, make more money, and have more freedom. So I appreciate that, dude. One of the reasons that I think I've been successful is I get very, very focused, and, I don't bounce around to all of the different strategies, and I've just been too dumb to quit. So is it a struggle? 100% it is. It's a lot of events. I just came off of 3. I'm back for a week and I'm going for 3 more next week. But it's just a season, man. It's just a season until we, you know, until we're the Coca-Cola brand out there of real estate and transaction coordinating.
Love it, man. For the people that want to learn more about you
Yeah.
and ezREI Closings, where can they find out more information?
Yeah, the best thing, we'll probably drop a link here for you know, if you want to jump over to our booking page and make a call. Me, I'm on Instagram at David Olds REI. That's probably the best place. We post a ton of content like you, just, you know, stuff from events and, you know, sitting here in the podcast and answering questions and doing that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, reach out to me. I do my best. There's no VA answering my messages. I sit there usually about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'll try to answer any question I can. You know, I love helping new people as best that I can, because again, I remember what it was like to be that guy sitting in the back of the room who was just too afraid to go talk to somebody.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man.
To drop by here. Like we said, it's been a long time coming. And also, I just want to say I had a blast with you on the Closers Olympics as well when we did the Dispo Day.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. I felt bad because Elijah had wanted me to do the comping. And when Liam had talked to me the first time, I didn't realize it was like 8 times. I'm like, oh, I thought it was just one. And again, my travel schedule, like there's just days I couldn't do it. So I told Elijah, and I knew he was disappointed. And then Wensley calls me up and he's like, and he never calls me. So I look at my phone. I'm like, oh, okay, what could this be? So he's like, hey, man, I need you to do something. I'm like, anything for you, Robert. I want you to do the Dispo judging and Closers Olympics. I'm like, oh, bro, I just told Elijah I couldn't do it, man. He's like, well, I'll talk to Elijah. You, me, and Jerry Norton are going to do it. I'm like, okay. So interesting. Like I'm not as good as Jerry Norton, right? I'm very direct. I'm like, I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then we're going to move on. And sometimes I think I was probably meaner than I should have been, not on purpose. But then Jerry Norton gets on, and he's like the nicest guy, kindest heart ever. And I'm like, oh boy, I sounded like a dick next to him.
I will say this: if you guys have not watched the 2023 Closers Olympics, the Dispo Day was so worth it.
Yeah.
In listening, getting the opportunity to listen to Robert Wensley, David Olds, and Jerry Norton essentially critique 3 Dispo managers for over 2 hours of talking to buyers and how they wrote up their ads and everything. Well worth the money. David, man, I really appreciate you coming on here today. Guys, remember, we only accept 5-star reviews. This is a monumental day for David, actually, because he his most recent podcast that he was on was Steve Trang's. And Steve Trang's podcast, remember, they love 3-star reviews, and we only accept 5-star reviews there. No, I love Steve. He gets so mad at me for that. But no, David, appreciate you, man. And
Thank you, dude.
we'll see you next week. It's
only we'll be down in Tampa.
Yes. All right, man. We'll see you later. All right.
Safe travels.